Excellent, excellent, excellent. I believe that we are now live, and today we're going to be talking about power exchange relationships and um, authority exchange and power neutral relationships. A lot of big words, but really what we're talking about is the structure of different BDSM relationships. And so we're going to use some big words, some different terms, but ultimately, I think it's going to be pretty easy for you to understand and easy for you to kind of grasp and learn. It's a lot of bigger words, but it's not really difficult. As you can see, this is a parental advisory. This is mature content. We're talking about nonviolent consensual BDSM. And I am Primal Piggy, and you can find me on Facebook at The Primal Piggy. You can put the @ and then The Primal Piggy all together, and you can find me there. You can also find me as an admin on Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape. You can find that website using the @ WCDT-BDSM, all in one thing. That's WCDT-BDSM. You can find Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape. I try to post these videos there as well. And I'm kind of going through like an overall series, trying to do like a video a day or a video every couple days. And we went through the characteristic or the character of a dom and a sub, and we went through red flags in a relationship. And I'm just trying to like build a foundation of how we want our community to be, what we want our community to really, our BDSM community to look like. And so we're trying to stay really positive and just trying to do some real good positive education. And so I have some notes here that I'm going to reference, and so you'll see those. You'll see the light kind of change on my face as I pull these up. And so first, let's talk about power neutral relationships. Power neutral relationships are like a husband and wife, or a boyfriend and a girlfriend, or a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or any combination, really not gender specific, but those types of more modern, people respecting each other, each person either putting in, I put in 50%, you put in 50%, and together we make 100, or I put in 100% and you put in 100%, and we're really just focused on, this power neutral, the man of the house may help around the house and may do some of the grocery shopping. One partner, will involve the other partner with major decisions, and in a general sense, it describes like modern marriage, and it's echoed in like partner relationships, like a boyfriend girlfriend, for example. And then there's another power neutral relationship, which is more of a BDSM relationship, and it's a top bottom relationship. In BDSM play, the word top, usually capitalized, and the word bottom, merely they describe like who is doing and receiving the action, and it's really scene specific. The top does things to the bottom. Top and bottom describe physical actions, and they're separate from like power-based roles such as dominant or submissive, because either a dominant or a submissive can serve as a top to like flog someone, or either a dominant or a submissive person can be serving as a bottom in order to enjoy or receive the flogging. And so they are scene specific. They're neutral because they're not an exchange dynamic. Nobody, only for that one specific scene, one person is doing. So one person's in charge, and the other person, one is in charge of giving, and the other is in charge of receiving for that specific scene. And so, or like that a scene, another word for scene is like that playtime, just for that one action, or that one combination of actions would be a scene. And so these are power neutral relationships. They are No one is giving over their power one to another. They're kind of like in common. Like they both, they both are on a totally equal playing field. So they are power neutral relationships. And so that's a lot of like vanilla relationships are more power neutral. Outside of BDSM, the relationship is kind of structured where no one is really more dominant and no one is really more submissive. They're both on an equal playing field. And that's really what a lot of modern relationships look like. Now there's what I would call the next is what is commonly called power exchange relationships. Now these are two different kinds. A power exchange is either more of a caregiver little or a a dominant submissive, so a DS. So a CGL, which would be caregiver little, which would be like a mommy and a little, or a daddy and a little, one of those types of relationships. So caregiver little and dom sub. And it could be a dame and a submissive. So it could be any combination of gender. It's not necessarily, a man isn't necessarily a dominant and a woman isn't necessarily a submissive, even though those are the examples that are commonly used and commonly referred to. There's a lot of common reference to masculine, just a lot of times in education, just to make things easy. And then you take your specific gender and your specific role or your honorific that you guys like to use, and you tailor it to suit you. But oftentimes from an educational standpoint, we can't cover everything that is possible. We try to just cover one thing, and then we allow you to take those things and apply it. And so we don't know. What I often say is we don't teach to the loophole. We don't teach to your specific. We're not speaking to your specific dynamic. We're teaching you like a foundational principle, and then you take and draw from that. And if she is the dominant and he's the submissive in your personal relationship, then that's how you would see it. So power exchange relationships. Now, a lot of times people will say that master slave is a power exchange relationship, and in one way it is, but we're going to call those authority exchange relationships. A little different than power exchange relationships. And when we get to the description, you'll really understand why, like the differences in a master slave or a mistress slave, or an owner property, or what's often called a TPE, a total power exchange, is really an authority exchange relationship. And so you'll see a little bit different. And those are MS, master slave, mistress slave, owner property, those kinds of TPE, total power exchange relationships, are authority exchange relationships. So we're going to look at power exchange, like a DS, and authority exchange, which is like an MS. So that'll be really a little bit easier there. And so let's look at the characteristics that are shared by like both a power exchange relationship and an authority exchange relationship. So the roles of each partner have been pre-negotiated, and there's an agreed upon leader and follower. That's that is a hallmark of both kinds, both power exchange and authority exchange. And then most of the relationship parameters have been pre-negotiated, and they're stated rules of behavior. And then because there's rules of behavior, there's consequences within the relationship for failure to comply with those rules. And so there's a structure of rules and expectations, and then there's expected behavior, and then there are consequences or perhaps punishments related to failure to comply with the rules or the the behaviors. And so the submissive generally serves the wants and needs of the dominant, and that's both in both power exchange and authority exchange. These are both, these are similarities. And then the submissive isn't supposed to just go off doing things without first checking with the dominant, and that's just like a general rule, like a general thing, is that the submissive is more submissive and the dominant is more dominant. And and that's the same for both a power exchange and an authority exchange. I hope you're able to follow that. Another similarity is the dominant must exhibit above average ethical and leadership behaviors so the submissive will continue to serve. And so those are just some common, there's a leader and a follower, there's expectations, and then can be consequences for failure to meet those expectations. And there's a certain level of character involved for all dominants and all submissives. And those are the things that are similar between a power exchange and an authority exchange relationship. So let's look at things that are just more common in a power exchange relationship. So we're just focusing on things that set power exchange relationships, which are like DDLG or DS, like those type, apart from other types of exchanging. And so the submissive maintains personal authority over some areas of their life, such as their work, their biological family, perhaps their religion, and possibly the time they may spend on their own or doing what they personally want to do. And they've discussed it, and the dominant has agreed to it. And so in something that sets a power exchange relationship apart from a authority exchange relationship is that the submissive maintains some personal authority over some areas of their life. Going on, the submissive retains personal property and control of their own finances, and that's typical. Sometimes they will begin to share finances somewhat, but really a lot of the times the submissive retains their personal property and their control over their finances. They have things that are specifically theirs, that they have ownership over property. Dominance is a key characteristic of the relationship. And so that is the characteristics of a DS and a DDLG power exchange relationship. So now let's look, on the other hand, at what an authority exchange relationship, how that differs from a regular power exchange relationship. So how does an MS, a master-slave type of dynamic, differ from a DS, a dom-sub? And so in part due to their complexity, master-slave structures often involve a written contract that defines the terms of the offer and the acceptance. And so really generally there is a written contract, and it is often well negotiated. It's not just like going through a checklist. This is like a huge ordeal, many months, perhaps years of going through and writing down what the slave can and cannot do, the responsibilities and things. And so another characteristic that's more common in master-slave authority exchange relationships is the master is 100% responsible for all aspects of the slave's well-being, the mental health, the physical health, finances, everything is resting, the responsibility rests on the master. Now, that doesn't mean the master does everything. That just means that the master is 100% responsible for everything. And so the slave may very well, do the finances in the relationship as a task, but the master is 100% responsible for the finances. So, and the emphasis in the relationship is on growth. The master is growing a slave. He or she is molding the slave into the person that the master wants them to be. So let's go on to this. Let's go a little bit further here. Something that is characteristic of a master-slave authority exchange is the master-slave relationships often involve a written code of personal and household protocols that describe the way the slave is to behave and the way the household is to run. Most often in an MS, master-slave relationship, the master and the slave live together most of the time, and if not, the master still has control over the slave's household. If the slave lives on their own, the master still is 100% responsible for them. And so the dominant type owns the submissive's time, and has been given authority by the submissive to determine the submissive's future. So there really is an exchange, as you can see, of authority, not just temporary power or power in certain situations, but an overwhelming authority exchange. And so these are, when someone's saying they're a master and they're looking for a slave, if they're being honest, this is what they're actually looking for. So it's a lot different than just a dominant submissive relationship. It's a lot more involved, and it's a lot more to be negotiated, and it's a whole other thing. It's not a power exchange, then it's more of an authority exchange, and I hope you can kind of see that. Hope I'm making it clear. Let's see, here's another one. The submissive has transferred authority over itself to the dominant. The submissive can no longer refuse an ethical request by the dominant without risking the dominant terminating the entire relationship. And so the submissive has no individual property or money. It belongs to the dominant. The most master-slave structures stress the ethical code of honor, integrity, loyalty, and trust. Words such as focus, purpose, and intent are common master-slave topics. And so master-slave practitioners often refer to the relationship as a family, and also often have extended family members who are part of the house. And so, as you can see, it's one moment here. As you can see, a master-slave dynamic is a lot different than a dom-sub or a daddy-little relationship. And so one is more of a power exchange relationship, and the other is more of an authority exchange relationship. And so I hope it helps really clear up. Let me close my notes here. I hope it really helps clear up for you the differences, both the similarities and the differences. And then also, there are the consideration of perhaps you are in maybe one or more of your relationships works best as a power neutral relationship. Maybe you're not meant to be a dominant or a submissive. You can still participate in BDSM and as a top and a bottom, and be more scene specific, and be in a power neutral relationship. Maybe that is more, if these types of things scare you, or if these types of things seem very uncomfortable to you, then a power exchange or an authority exchange relationship may not be for you. It may not be what you're ultimately interested in. So you can still play, and you can still scene, and you can still be involved in some aspects of BDSM. You can still, you can still have, you can still have some role play scenes where someone role plays in your relationship as a dominant or a submissive, and possibly maybe more, a lot more of a a lot more of a power neutral relationship would be a switch where where you are more topping and more bottoming at different times. If it's power exchange, that can get rather complicated if you're both switching, because you both have to know who is being dominant and who is being submissive at any given time. So it's really is a lot more complicated. Switching is generally it comes up in like those different types of tests and things, those online surveys and things that people take. Generally, it comes up when people are somewhat undecided. It's not always the case. Switch is very valid. I'm not saying it's not valid at all. It just, switching generally takes shape more. When the rubber meets the road, it takes shape as a more power neutral relationship, because it's more, sometimes I'm topping, sometimes I'm bottoming, and we're just using the role during that scene of dominant and submissive. And so, but switching is more, oftentimes than not, it is more power neutral. And so, not that any of them are bad or wrong, they're just different. They're just different. They play out in different ways. And so, there are power neutral, and then there's of course, dom sub. If you're going to use the terms that you're a submissive and you're looking for a dominant, then you should be prepared for some aspect of a power exchange. You should be looking to give over some aspects of power. If you're a submissive, give over some aspects of power to a dominant. If you're a dominant, you should be ready to receive some aspects of power, and exert leadership in some ways, and have an active participating follower. And if you are interested in a master slave or owner property, or a total, what they call a total power exchange relationship, then you are looking at an authority exchange. And so that authority exchange should be well calculated, and it should be well negotiated, and it should take some time. I know a lot of times there are different collars and training collars and a period of training and all of those types of things that are involved in slave training, and that is done not by some just generic third party, but it is a master tailoring a slave for him or herself. And so just some things to think about there. So I hope that kind of clears it up, kind of shows you the different options that are available, where you may currently fall, and potentially where you could want to go. And so, like me, for instance, one of my relationships, I'm polyamorous, so one of my relationships is a power neutral relationship where we both give 100%, and we both are on a common footing. There's no dominant and submissive in that relationship, and it is more vanilla, and for the most part. And then my other relationship is a power exchange relationship, and it is often expressed, while we are in some ways dominant and submissive, a lot of ways we are daddy little. And so so it is a DS or a DDLG relationship that's power exchange, and we're not in a place or in a mindset where we're even looking, as far as I know, at an authority exchange relationship. And so so that's the way that my relationships, and there's no one right way or wrong way to be. These are just options, and these are the three common structures that you'll find in BDSM relationships. And so power neutral, power exchange, and authority exchange are the three terms that you need to know. I hope you're able to really understand those. I hope I did an okay job. Oh, my throat gets a little dry when I'm teaching. And so, excuse me. So I am Primal Piggy. You can find me on Facebook at The Primal Piggy, or of course at Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape. Thank you for watching. I really enjoyed this specific lesson.